Hi, this is Lauren, and welcome to the Autoimmune Awareness Hop. We're jumping right into the card because this is a hop, and I want to make sure I have plenty of time to share with you everything that I used and did to make this card, and that you still have plenty of time yourself to hop along and watch all of the videos. So those are the different dies and stamps that I used on my card. I will have all of the links in my description below for all of the products. I'm going to start by ink blending my background. I have some mint tape to create a white border on that scallop die cut edges, and I'm just using some scrapbook.com inks and blending those colors onto my background. I am using a pink, yellow, blue, purple, and a darker pink to create a rainbow look of color on my background piece. Now it looks a little blotchy because this is watercolor paper, but I'm going to be spraying it so some of that ink will blend together, as this is a hybrid ink and can be used with water to blend those colors a little better together. I have some metallic watercolor that I splattered onto my background, and I'm going to clean up my workstation and use my heat gun to dry my background. And once it's dry, I'm going to peel off that mint tape, and you can see that really pretty white border around my rainbow background. I'm going to set all of that aside and work on the next piece. I've die cut some mushrooms from that Fairy Garden die set, also in watercolor paper. And I love my little mushroom tops that they're separated because I am actually going to watercolor those as well in that same gold metallic ink. So I'm bringing my watercolors back out, spritzing onto the paint, and using that same brush just to apply that paint to each of these little mushroom tops. So I am going over once, and then I come back again once it's a little more dry to darken up that color. I'm going to set all of those aside to dry and move on to the next part of my card. I'm going to be stamping with this new Think Spring Gnomes from Whimsy Stamps. I have also, again, some watercolor paper, and I'm using my embossing tool to put down some powder because I will be embossing the image. I am using my Misty to make sure I can stamp twice if needed, and I won't have to worry about double stamping or it not being perfectly lined up. I am using some VersaFine ink in Onyx Black. It's a pigment ink, perfect for watercoloring, but it also stays a little wet so you can emboss it. I'm going to bring out my detailed embossing powder in transparent, so it's a clear embossing powder, and I'm going to cover that whole image. I will pick up my powder because I'm terrified of making a mess, and then I will heat up my heat gun and use it to melt all of that plastic in the embossing powder. I'm going to be using my Zig watercolor brushes to color in my image, and since you don't really need to hear me too much talk about my coloring, you can follow along. I'm going to talk about autoimmune disorders. Now, I was really excited to be a part of this hop for Tara. She is Mayhem Crafty Cards, and she's one of my new virtual crafty friends thanks to Team Tiny and Sparkle Blends. And she has been diagnosed with MS and type 1 diabetes and wanted to have this hop just to bring awareness to these different types of diseases. I too have an autoimmune disorder. I suffer from Graves' disease. It's a thyroid problem. I have a hyperactive thyroid, and I was diagnosed with this disease a couple of years ago. I will be taking medication most likely for the rest of my life. It affects my thyroid, and it has too much T levels. If you want to Google that, you can. Some of the side effects of Graves' disease that I suffer from are an increased heart rate, incredibly high anxiety, fatigue, really scratchy and itchy skin, sleep disturbance, irritability, and I've had some issues with tremors, but nothing that's really been a long-term thing. But since being on medication, a lot of that has gone away. I mostly just suffer from really high anxiety, and I'm already an anxious person, so thanks, thyroid. But I do see an endocrinologist, a specialist, at least twice a year now, sometimes more, as I have tried different types of medication, and she's monitoring me to make sure that my T levels are low enough now that I can live a pretty much normal life. Talking about having Graves' disease is not something I really share with everyone, so it was kind of nice to talk about it today and to share with all of you, my followers, just a little more something personal about me. If anyone else suffers from Graves' disease or has a thyroid condition and you'd like to share, let me know. I would love to know and encourage you down in the comments below. Now I am almost done coloring my card. I am just creating a rainbow hat for my gnome here. I gave him some pretty blue shoes and a little brown bunny friend. And now that everything is dry, I am going to start putting my mushroom caps back onto my mushrooms. So I am just using some wet glue with a precision tip to glue around all of those holes in that mushroom top. And then I am adhering it to the mushroom base. And there we have a pretty gold mushroom. I use my scan and cut to die cut out my gnome and sweet little bunny, and I have die cut out this banner die cut piece, and I'm going to be stamping Better Together onto the banner. So I placed it to the center of my die and used that to help me guide the curve of my stamp. I picked it up with my clear block so my curve will stay, and I inked it in that same VersaFine black onyx ink, and I am stamping it to the center of that banner. And now that everything is ready, I am going to start adhering all of my pieces. I am going to use some 2-inch foam tape to adhere my rainbow scalloped background that I created. I like this tape because it's really wide and helps me get a nice even dimension for large die cuts or large images. And I'm going to cover the whole back, pick up the release tape, and adhere that to the center of my card base. I'm going to make sure that that's pretty even and also make sure my card base has a nice score line. Next is my banner sentiment. The die cut has the score lines on it to help you with folding the banner to give it that really pretty kind of folded and a look with dimension, but I want my folds to stay in place, so I'm just using some little tiny glue dots. These are left over from a paper pumpkin kit, I'm sure, many years ago, and I just hold on to all my extra adhesive. And I am just applying glue dots anywhere on the flaps that they are folded on top of each other. So putting a couple glue dots in between that main front banner piece and the first flap, and then I'm going to repeat that on the other side. And then I'm going to put one more glue dot towards the edge of the banner and fold that piece over as well. So now anywhere where there's a fold for my banner, there is a glue dot keeping it nice and secure together. And then I'm going to work on placing all of my pieces. So I know I want my mushrooms to be in the back, and my largest ones are going to be glued directly to my rainbow background. So I'm using my banner and my gnome just to help with my placement, and I'm going to secure that first mushroom and the second one similar on the other side. Now my smaller mushrooms, I want there to be a little bit of dimension, so I'm using these foam dimensionals behind my smaller mushrooms. I have one behind the mushroom top and half of one on that mushroom stem, and then I'm going to layer them with the other gold mushroom, making sure that I still have room to pop up my gnome with his little bunny friend. So now all my mushrooms are adhered. I'm going to add some extra foam tape that's a little bit thicker than my foam dimensionals to my gnome, peel up that release tape, and place it onto my card. Now for the Better Together sentiment, I am going to just adhere down the edges of those banners with some wet glue, and this will cause the center part to have a natural lift from those folds. And there we have my sentiment Better Together onto the card. Everything is looking good, but of course we need some sparkle blends to fancy up this card. Now I'm using an Easter mix that has different shades of pink, yellow, and blue, and purple, so I am just scattering those around to match the background. Here is the final card. I love the shimmer and rainbow look, which was the theme of this hop, using rainbow colors. I hope you enjoy this card and that you enjoy this hop and learned a little bit more about me. You can find all the information for the next hopper down below, as well as information about the giveaway that Tara is doing. Thank you again for watching. I hope you'll like if you enjoyed this video, and if you're new, you'll subscribe. Have a wonderful day.